Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with my co-host, Alex Sashlow. This week, Trump gave his first, well, it wasn't really a State of the Union because it's
joint
in the
address,
first year.
yeah.
And joint address, and we'll react to that, of course. But a common thread, many of you have asked us, where do we see the State of the Union? Think about how hard it is to get an honest, unbiased look at all the different things that make up our country and our democracy. That should tell you something, but we're going to give it a try. Alex, where do you want to get started?
We got to talk about Trump's speech. I mean, I don't really want to talk too much about it because I think your reaction is going to be the same as mine. But I did want your thoughts. I mean, was it was anything new? Was anything unexpected?
No, it was exactly what we should have expected anyway, right? I mean, lots of lying. Like more Americans believe the country's on the right track than ever.
Oh man, did you watch it live? By the way,
No,
yeah, I
no
didn't
way in
either.
hell. No way in hell.
Good. It saved you what, an hour 40?
First of all, it was 100, an hour and 40 minutes, the longest ever. And when you said, well, what did you expect? Well, what we expected was lie after lie after lie, which, by the way, he did for an hour and 40 minutes. And then on tariffs, he's talking about how it's a little disturbance.
That I think was notable.
Yeah, it's just a little disturbance, nothing to worry about. It'll all be okay, and we're all good with that. We're all good with the disturbance. He said, I mean, it was, it reminds me of him saying that he'll get prices down on the campaign trail, and then after getting elected, saying, "Geez, getting prices down is too difficult." The really crazy one was his whole rant about Biden letting the price of eggs grow out of control. I mean, yeah, they're going up big time on his watch, and it's because of the bird flu. And he's still blaming Biden for the high price of eggs.
And he's nuked basically all the regulation to potentially prevent another one of those.
Yeah, exactly. So, here we are potentially, with another health crisis on our hands. Which is the reason egg prices are so high. The measures that are being taken to prevent that from happening. And you could change the policy if you want. I mean, he is the president.
I had to actually watch this clip because I couldn't tell whether he was joking or not, but I think it was just kind of him acting like a king. But he had some really weird things to say about Marco Rubio, which the one thing everyone needs to remember about Donald Trump is if you cross him or he even thinks you've crossed him, he is never, ever, 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 ever going to forget it. He might say, "How can I use you for my own ends?" at some point, but he is never, ever, ever going to let that go. So all the little Marco stuff, even though he like Secretary of State to him is still little Marco. But
he almost said that
he did.
He almost did that. He looked over and said, Marco is such a, and then you could tell he cut himself.
You could tell he wanted to, but he said something like he was confirmed 99-0, which I'm either really happy about or really concerned about. I don't know which actually wasn't a bad line, but like he said that in a joint address to Congress. Like it's just a very odd thing to say. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but anyway, there are lots of really odd things he said, but we digress.
So let's zoom out because again, we got a ton, and I'm really glad we can get to all these. We've got a little bit today that I'm calling your State of the Union, which I'd really like your stance. Which what got us here was there's an analysis on CNN where if you Google, you can probably get here's where things are, here's what Trump's done, all that. But I'm just going to read for a minute, indulge me, and then I'm going to point out the problem, and then I'm going to get to you. So his first line, government chaos is back. Okay, then he talks about the tariffs. Yeah. He froze the duties after realizing that they could wreck an American industry. Then he gets into the Zelensky debacle, which you'll get to. He says Elon Musk is taking his chainsaw out of the bureaucracy, indiscriminately firing workers, feeding agencies into the wood chipper, pitching citizens and industries who rely on government payments into uncertainty just as the economy softens and is more vulnerable to such shocks. Okay, that's all fine. And then he kind of sums it up by saying there doesn't seem to be a plan. But that was like the top third of the article. The rest of it was essentially both sidesing it to hell. So you start with an almost honest take. Even CNN just playing both sides. So Joe, that's why, and I know our listeners want this too, your take on the State of the Union is. And I thought we'd break it down and maybe start internationally and then get smaller as we go. So how do you see like the world right now?
Well, look, I think it was Tom Nichols who wrote that, Trump, calling it an ambush and Vance and Trump, ambushing Zelensky, setting him up. And I responded to that. I thought it's a great article, a great piece, by the way, and we should maybe try to put it in our show notes. But no, it was definitely an ambush of Zelensky. But moreover, it was an ambush of the free world. I think Europe, our allies, saw, him blustering, bullying, and basically that meeting in the Oval, like I said, wasn't just an ambush of Zelensky. It was an ambush of our allies, of our position in the free world, and an announcement that we were switching sides. And so part of this is, look, the whole thing here is how much damage, even if you believe, okay, he's going to be gone in 4 years and Vance will be standing and the rules of voting will be free and fair and all that. The damage done with that one debacle in the Oval Office is just, it will take years and years to repair because, in the first term, I think our allies said, "Oh, this is a one-off. This is, this is America, and they'll wake up to this guy." And when Joe Biden won, they thought we had, and now it's like, no, they now know not whether Trump's going to be around or not. They know that it's not a one-off. That this is that this could be permanent, that they need to face the reality that America's no longer an ally and has switched sides.
Yeah, it's almost like it's now more a reflection on the country as a whole. It's a reflection on us. It's not just Trump's crazy one-off.
I know of a former governor uh, who was traveling overseas, sent me an email that said, "It's amazing. We were once adored and looked up to, and now we're despised." That's what's happening in the meetings. It's like it's people asking, "How did you all vote for him?" And is there anything to stand up and get rid of him? The line that stuck with me was, "We were once adored, now we're despised," and it's different than the first time around. The first time around, benefit of the doubt. This time around, as you said, Alex, it's reflected on all of us, and the country in a way that didn't take hold, I think, in the first term.
You see that also with how some of the rest or how the rest of the EU has been reacting. Zelensky immediately went to London, had a pretty powerful meeting
Yeah,
with
yeah.
most of the EU heads. But then Macron came out and said France is going to start looking at nuclear deterrence with Russia, which is a very new stance from a lot of the European allies, at least publicly, which should tell you where they think we're going to be.
Exactly. I mean, well, look, Europe actually has stepped up.
They did since the beginning.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think the Oval Office ambush of Zelensky and of them stiffened them. It didn't weaken them. They stiffened up and are not going to back down, I don't think, to Trump's bullying. And, I think you're going to see, I think, a real response of aid and support and boots on the ground, if that's what's needed in Ukraine from Europeans. Not all of them, but I think from the UK and France. You're going to see that and others. Italy won't, because they don't have anything to send really, or money or troops. But I just think that's happened. You also I think you see a stiffening of Canada, Mexico, and China on the tariffs. It's literally like Xi basically saying, if Trump wants a war, we're ready to fight one. So like I just think all around you're looking at real total isolation, in which you've angered and abandoned our allies, Again, and Mexico and Canada being in there with Zelensky and everybody else, you're taking our allies on, and then you're poking at China with the tariffs too. It's Trump and Putin against the world. That's where Trump wants to go. It's where his sycophants in the government now want to go. And while they wreak havoc, not just there, but destroying just about every department. Now the Department of Education is next, the IRS.
Yeah, and we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
You know, the one thing, look back, and we've had a couple guests on who have talked about this, but one of the core tenets of MAGA has been that isolationism. It's not just America first, but it's also America only, for
Right.
lack of a better, and
America alone. Yeah. By itself.
there was, before we get a little closer to home, this is a terrifying question, and this is, I think, a good summation of where our listeners are. Seriously, I mean, we've read what a lot of you have been writing in, and Madison in North Carolina, you are not alone in asking this question, which is terrifying. I have a 15-year-old son. I'm starting to get very nervous that he might get drafted before the end of Trump's term. Tell me he's not going to start a real war.
Look, the problem here is Trump may not intend to start a real war, but he's definitely capable of blundering into one. So I think that fear is very real. I think what's interesting is in the his first administration, Trump obviously saw himself as sort of the prince to Putin's king, to Putin being king. I think what's happened somehow in Trump's head is he now sees himself as the superior and Putin below him. Yeah, that his ego and everything now, sort of unleashed. No one is pushing back in the administration. And it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not interesting. I just think that that's a really scary thing. I think Trump believes he can do no wrong, and that now he's in charge of everything. And the reality, when that doesn't work, when this is the Trump vision, MAGA in charge meets reality. It's meeting reality that's going to create a lot of problems. And whether it's the prices of everything going up, whether it's tariffs impacting and just wrecking the economy, whether it's the reality that you can't stop the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. This is the other thing. When he sits there and says to Zelensky, you have no cards, it's a card game. It's a deal. And he believes he has the cards. The reality, and Alex, you were on the ground with me in Ukraine. You know that just as Putin way underestimated the Ukrainian people. I mean, he believed that he was going to win that war in 4 days.
Yep.
And you and I both knew and had seen the sign, blazed across that building in Independence Square that said, "Freedom is our religion." Met enough Ukrainians when we were on the ground there after the Crimea invasion that these people were going to fight for their country, and that Putin had badly underestimated them. Well, telling the Ukrainian people, telling Zelensky, you have no cards, give up your country. I just don't think that the Ukrainian people, I mean, Zelensky basically said that in the meeting, wait, I'm the president of Ukraine. I'm not going to, my people are not going to want to just give it all away. And so I think Trump may, again, meet reality. It's his fantasy of being king, in which he can't ordain that war ends. And what does that turn into over time as Europe now steps into the fray even more without any support from the U.S.? And why? Because they know Putin. They live with Putin right on their borders. As Zelensky pointed out, we've got a big ocean that that makes that keeps that threat pretty far away, unless Trump does something really stupid.
Well, then you think about what the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, who are all right there. By the way, who are NATO member countries.
Right, exactly. So NATO will go. NATO's not going away. NATO will maybe now that this is the interesting thing. So the rumors were flying around that Trump's going to withdraw from NATO. that he can, because first of all, the president doesn't have the power to leave NATO. It's a treaty. It will, take Congress, Senate, et cetera. But what he could do is reduce the troops in Europe. I mean, pull our as commander in chief, he could order troops out. This is more me not saying this is what he'll do. I'm more responding to the question of how could he get us into a war without really intending to. So because he's mad at NATO and he's pissed at Zelensky because he wouldn't do his perfect call and take the bribe to go after Biden and all that stuff. Because of all that, he decides to pull troops out of, and it also, by the way, in a cost cutting, fire people, you pull troops out of Europe. Well, then you pull American troops out of Europe, and Putin now has a real big green light, and suddenly we're in the world is in the tight spot that Trump puts us in. So these are all things that could happen. I don't think he'll do it wittingly, but I wouldn't count out, real significant problems that could get us into a very bad place beyond just the economic and some of these other things that we're all, in rights and Medicare and Social Security and things like that.
Well, let's move domestically, which, after that rosy picture. I do think, though, by the way, so much of this, if you go back to the 2016 campaign, successfully painting Hillary Clinton as hawkish, and you just see kind of the reverberations over the past 9 years. Anyway,
Well,
okay.
no, but I know where you want to go on domestic, but this is where I do think some of the cognitive dissonance may be really starting to erode Trump's strength, because it's one thing to kind of in the first term lean in towards Putin on some things. It's another thing to literally in one day make it clear you're switching sides. Even a lot of the diehard Republicans who are with Trump still believe today that Putin, if you look at the favorability numbers, Putin's favorability is like at 3 or 4%. Zelensky's much more favorable, even with Republicans, than Putin. So I think the actual switching of sides of doing things like if he does reduce troops in Europe, things like that, does that. And we've talked many times about, when's the bridge too far going to be that the American people stand up and say no more. And there have been several bridges that have burned in ashes and didn't have that result. But this one, I think, could be a problem for him. And then you have the domestic stuff.
Let's go there. I start this with a question from Steph in Minnesota, but just in general. I saw Trump's executive order plan to cut the Department of Education. Is this the cycle where the GOP finally cuts Medicare and Social Security? They keep threatening to do it. Are they going to? And will they be the dogs that caught the car? So start there, but zoom out and domestically, where are we right now? Because economically, I do not check the stock market. Just don't. What do you think, Trippi?
Well, I think it's down again today. And I think, look, it's the same thing. You look at all the data, the American people do not want to cut education funding and do not support destroying the Department of Education. They certainly do not support cuts in Medicare or Social Security. And yet, yeah, the threats there, they're definitely going after Medicaid. For sure, that's going to happen. Look, it's like we talked about with the bird flu. I mean, and measles. It's clear that there are some health crises starting to develop out there. And forget about RFK Jr. I mean, what you think about him on vaccines and things, but you got NIH. You look at what they're doing with the Food and Drug Administration. Any of these places, they're offering buyouts in every department that you can imagine, including Department of Education. It's all, this is all happening. There's no one running the store. And so, what could go wrong? I mean, this is the whole thing. Steve Bannon and these guys, they've always been, and we've talked about this in the middle of the campaigns, a lot of the people around Trump strongly believe that you've got to burn the whole thing down. You burn it all down. It's like, and they describe it as as what happens when a wildfire burns everything down in the forest, and it sort of destroys all the old wood and the old fallen trees and stuff, and gets rid of them all. And then you have green shoots pop up, and you have a brand new forest. Well, guess what? When that forest fire rolls through that forest, everything in the forest dies. Everything. And then 20 years later, there's like some of these little green shoots start to pop up. In the meantime, it's a pretty bad place to be. And so now we have a administration that is out trying to burn down every single department out there, including and make whatever remnants are left loyal to the king. And so that means there's going to be a lot of problems, a lot of pain, and a lot of American families that are hurt. And yes, people will die, whether it's because of health consequences or other things, and they don't care. They see this as a necessary thing to let those green shoots start anew without any thinking, without any understanding of the damage the fire is going to do in real time as they do it, and how long it will be to put it back together, and a new way to look at how the Food and Drug Administration should work. Absolutely, we should all do that. It shouldn't be just every institution that's there, keep it exactly the same, which is, by the way, one of the things I thought hurt us in the last election was they somehow were able to put us in the place of defending democracy, defending the Food and Drug Administration, defending these departments as they exist. And we were defending because we knew this was what they were going to do. They were going to destroy them. We said, no, we've got to save this stuff. That made us defending the status quo, defending the way all these departments work with too much bureaucracy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And no, the American people thought we need these things all needed change, as you and I and others may have done, but that wasn't the position we were put in. And I think it worked for them. And now they're going to burn it all down. And when do the American people say, we should have seen this coming? And it's now inflicting pain on the people they promised they were fighting for. This is the way 2026 matters so much, because they're in a race now to take it all, destroy it all, take it all, and make the remnants theirs. We're in a race to win 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 House seats in 2026 to take the House and basically be able to stall them wherever they are by 2026, stall them there, and keep the framework of democracy as open as we can. And because of that, okay, there's a whole bunch of places that are not in those 8 or 9 or 10 places where we can take the House seats. Now, folks, the important thing here is enough of those House seats, the marginal House seats, the battleground House seats, exist in California, in New York, in Illinois, in places where Democratic governors and legislatures are available and in charge. They're not going to change the voting rules or any of those things. So that needs to happen. But in the meantime, all of us need to put sand in the gears. That's from senators holding up appointments. It's calling the Republicans in the House and the Senate on everything and asking them what the hell they're doing and when are they going to stand up to this guy. It is at all times slowing it. They're in a race to take it all. We need to slow them down. And we need a Democratic leadership in the House and Senate and you're starting to see this to stand up and do that.
So we have a ton more to get to, and literally the state of both parties, the economy, the rest of the country. But Joe, we're just about out of time, and that sounds like a pretty good place to end. I think we're going to turn this into a 2-parter, so stay tuned for next week. But that's a very good place for us to wrap today.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. And thanks, everyone, for listening to That Trippi Show. We are going to make a big announcement about Says Us on Tuesday, March 10th. So join up. SEZ.us. It's live. It's in the Google and Apple app stores, and get ready for some big news. We're ready to roll, and we're going to create the pro-democracy social network, an information distribution network that serves a pro-democracy movement that has to grow. So please go there, go to your app store and go to SEZUS, look up the app. And if you're Android or iPhones, go to your store and load the app up and join us. As for That Trippi Show, this podcast will always be free and is part of Resolute Square. There's some big news coming out of Resolute Square, I think on March 11th. So check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. A lot of good stuff coming that's going to empower people in the pro-democracy movement to get our messages out and take on the propaganda machine that's been going at us for years, decades. So please subscribe to That Trippi Show. Leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. Also, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. You can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com or leave us a question in a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week. Also, next week, I think Reed Gallen's going to join us on next week's show to talk more about Says Us and the pro-democracy movement.
Resolute Square.